Hi, I'm Mary Edwards, and you're watching Dyke TV, television to incite, subvert, organize, and provoke. And now, the news. On November 2nd, in Cincinnati and in Lewiston, Maine, voters repealed existing civil rights protections for lesbians and gay men. And in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, they voted against ever granting us those basic rights. It was a victory for the right-wing propaganda campaign that portrays civil rights for lesbians and gay men as special rights. While the religious right steps up its divide and conquer campaign throughout the country, pitting white working class and African-American heterosexuals against lesbians and gay men, many in our community are reaching out to other groups. Unity was the theme at a recent coalition rally in Colorado Springs and a march against hate in Tampa, Florida.
Our gathering today in Colorado Springs is about moving forward. It is about working to shape the strategies and coalitions that will create our victories in 1994 and beyond.
More than 1,000 people took to the streets in Tampa on October 24th to protest racist and homophobic hate crimes. It was a broad coalition, the NAACP and ACT UP, the American Indian Movement and the Lesbian Avengers, the United Farm Workers, and NOW. In San Francisco, hundreds marched at a political funeral for Joan Baker, a 26-year-old lesbian who died of AIDS after a 6-year-long battle against apathy, rejection, and lack of services, a situation faced by many lesbians with the disease. Organizers said the funeral was intended to give visibility to an invisible issue.
Women who have sex with women need to protect themselves from the HIV virus. That women, incredibly courageous, strong women, are living with HIV and AIDS.
My sisters told me for years, you don't have to worry about this disease. Lesbians don't get this disease. All women are vulnerable.
The fastest growing group of new AIDS cases is women. And yet, those statistics that we're getting today are reflecting stuff that happened years and years and years ago.
You have me listed as a heterosexual. I'm a lesbian woman. You have to change the numbers. My sisters are going to die. They don't think that you get this disease because you're not counting us. Change the definition. I want to be counted.
In New York City on November 1st, all charges were dropped against more than 150 people arrested last March for protesting the exclusion of ILGO, the Irish Lesbian and Gay Organization, from the traditional St. Patrick's Day parade. The protest was one of the largest acts of civil disobedience in the city's history.
The charges against 228 people were dropped, people who were arrested on St. Patrick's Day, and we were charged with criminal contempt, resisting arrest and disorderly conduct for protesting. The exclusion of the Irish Lesbian and Gay Organization from the St. Patrick's Day parade, and also the fact that we were not allowed protest as a community, the bigotry and the homophobia of that exclusion.
One of the big things that happened this year was that the city took an injunction out against us. That doesn't happen very often, and I think it's partly to do with it's been used historically in different kinds of ways. It's been used against the civil rights movement here in this country and in Ireland, and it's also been used against trade union organisers in this country, different groups of people, and now it's been used against the lesbian and gay community, and it's a real ominous thing that's happening when you can't go out in the street and protest something that's wrong without having an injunction placed against a protest march. It's really sinister.
Well, obviously we're very relieved that the charges were dropped. I can't say that we're necessarily elated. I think what's particularly irksome today is that the district attorney lied. He said that part of the reason why they were dismissing charges is because ILGO had agreed to negotiate next year with the police before we conducted any kind of protest parade, and that's a lie. And we will not enter into any negotiations. We will not negotiate away our rights in this particular issue, and we'll be back next year, and we'll continue to protest the homophobia, and we will make the courts listen to us as well.
had planned a motorcycle ride to March on Washington. I started receiving calls 2 weeks prior to that, calls stating, "You lesbian dyke bitch, if you do this ride for life, you'll be one less lesbian in Tampa to worry about." And what was it? "If you march, your house will parch." That's the one that, like, you know, that one kind of weirded me out. During the whole weekend in Washington, which was absolutely beautiful, I continuously tried to call home to make sure everything was okay, that Kevin was all right, that, you know, nobody had messed with him or the house particularly. And I never could get through to him. I finally touched base with a lesbian couple that lives 4 blocks behind my home. They're good friends of mine. And she said, "Dee, who's there with you?" And I said, ACT UP and a handful of activists that I've met. They're, you know, we're downtown. Says, "Are you alone?" And I said, "Penny, what the hell is going on? Is Kevin okay?" I thought she was going to tell me that somebody broke into the house and, like, bashed him or something. That was, like, one of my biggest fears. And she told me they blew it up. It exploded 3 times late last night. Watch your head. This is my entrance to the living room. This is what's left of the furnishings. The television, my new stereo, and my brand new Papasan chair. But this is what I came home to.
You know, I'll never forget when we pulled up in her yard that day and saw her house. I think at that time I had such empathy for Dee that I could feel what she was feeling. The fear, the anger, the pain of it all.
You got my home and you got everything I own, but you didn't get me, you know. That means that I can start over again. But, and that's not courage, it's sometimes anger, because I can feel it down here. It is.
I'm from Largo, Florida. My name's Laura. We need to do things like this and let people know that we're here and we're not going away. We're not going to go back to being the people in the closets like we were a long time ago. And we refuse to succumb to society that doesn't believe that we're actually human beings.
Tampa Bay needs to clean up its act. We really do.
Yeah.
That's right. And I hope this sends a message throughout the whole city and throughout the whole state that we do stand together, gays and lesbians and bisexuals, and family and supporters, and that we do look after our own, and the world would be a lot more peaceful and loving place if everybody else would.
You're here.
Thanks.
We've been planning this action probably since right after the March on Washington, when we heard from Dee, who we met down in Washington at the Dyke March, that this happened and that she called us and asked us to come down. I think we basically very quickly said, yes, we want to do this, and then went into the planning stages. Our objective is for really just to get some media attention, just to get some visibility to this issue, get the people of Tampa to think about what's going on in their city, and to get the officials to maybe realize that they can't just wipe these things under the rug.
Stop the hate! Stop the violence! Sex with AIDS will not be silent! Stop the hate! Stop the violence! Sex with AIDS will not be silent!
This is the first, lesbian street action that I've been involved in Florida. That's kind of exciting. Well, it feels like an ordinary day for a dyke.
There have been several gay bashings outside of some local bars. There's a lot of white supremacist literature being distributed in Palm Beach County right now. And basically Florida's under siege with the amendments, the proposed amendments to our Constitution that are happening. It's time for everybody to just activate, get busy.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Sandy Friedman, the mayor of Tampa, and I came down. I know of your interest in this case, more than interest in this case, concern about this case, and we'll do everything we possibly can to find the perpetrator of this crime and send the case to the state attorney's office, who will make the determination as to whether or not it is a hate crime.
What on earth is keeping the city from Tampa from classifying it as a biased crime at this point? I can't
specifically talk to you about the legalities of how the crimes are classified, but I can tell you that, as I said already, it's morally a hate crime, whether it legally is or not. It is a very serious offense. It will be fully investigated, and it will be turned over to the state attorney, and they classify this.
What more evidence could they do?
I can't speak specifically about the evidence involved in the case.
They can keep right on burning homes. If I can get somebody to insure me on the next home and they burn it down, so be it. Because they're, you know, I'm not, more than likely I'll die in Tampa. Hopefully not at the hands of some homophobic, AIDS bigotry.
Lesbian energy right under the bridge. Well, my feeling is, being, you know, one of the chairs of the softball league, is that we shouldn't call it exclusively lesbian, because we want to encourage all women to try out for the league. We don't want to exclude anyone.
Getting instruction to women that grew up without having any idea of how to throw a ball. You throw a ball like a girl. Of course you throw a ball like a girl. A girl has never been taught. You throw the ball like a person who's never been taught. When my grandkids are with me, or the children from the community, they come by and they watch the women play, you know, the kinds of comments they make. And look at those women, look at how they can play. You know, they can play better than the men.
I just started coming down because it's like a family, you know, it's all, the whole team is lesbians, and they've been playing together for a long time. They all go to the bar together the night before and the night after.
It's nice that you can sort of come together towards a common goal of playing a game, and it's also nice that the league is run by women, because I think women have different concerns. Women are much more interested, I think, in going out and having a good game, as opposed to sort of going out and killing the other team.
I just moved to New York about 2 years ago and was desperately seeking softball.
The very day I moved to New York City, I came to softball practice the very next day, and so I had an instant group of women friends, and it's been like that ever since.
I don't drink, I don't go to bars very often, so this is where I've met a lot of my lovers.
A lot of her lovers.
I met my girlfriend in Wani, and she's a great softball player. She happened to hit the winning run in today, so now she's going to get lucky tonight.
We actually met in a bar.
But it was because of softball. Right. It's a typical softball romance. I mean, we have a lot in common.
It is not. She yells at me while she doesn't yell at the rest of the team.
I do yell at her more.
I get extra mad at her when she makes bad managerial decisions.
We have a lot in common, and playing softball is just we play football together too. So it's just fun.
We're the Comets, and we are in this league an all-lesbian team.
And over the years, I would say the percentage is higher in lesbians, probably 95% to 5%.
We're mean, we're green, and we're gonna lick you!
Screw you, Bill Donahue. Dick, hell with you. Michael Douglas, and lesbian-only civil rights. Who the hell do you think you are? They're disgusting. Shit. We're better than Hillary Clinton. Possibilities. We've heard about you, Hillary. I just feel warm all over. I think we ought to call the bluff of the right wing. I've been watching too many of their videotapes, reading too much of their literature. It's all about gay men. I even had to debate one of these jerks on television for an hour, and all he did for an hour was talk about how homosexuality equaled degenerate, diseased anal intercourse and was the equivalent of drug addiction. So here's my suggestion. I think we call their bluff by putting forth a lesbian-only civil rights bill. They don't want diseased anal intercourse. They don't want guys flaunting themselves in the streets. Fine. What do they think about civil rights for lesbians? Because we're nice people after all, right? I say this will really expose their agenda, which has nothing to do with anybody's behavior, but has simply to do with their narrow view of the world, which says they should be in charge and they can get rid of everybody else. The minute we propose this, they are going to run screaming for cover, and this is the last we're going to hear of them. Meanwhile, it gives us a chance to separate ourselves out from all these disgusting guys anyway. Who needs them anymore? I'm sick of defending them. I say, let's take over on our own. Let them follow behind us. Let's do a lesbian-only civil rights bill.
And I'm the executive chef at Maxime's. I just was always interested in food. I always liked food from like an eating point of view. And one summer I wanted to go to Paris and didn't have anything to do, and I decided just to go to cooking school. And I liked it so much that after graduating from college, I went and looked for a job and started working. And now here I am. Yeah, I kind of like became a chef really early. I didn't have a whole hell of a lot of experience. I worked at Boulet and at Chanterelle, and I did my internships and got my schooling in France. But then right after that, I went directly into a chef job, and very luckily landed here.
Il était beau le piano, bon piano, vieux piano des copains. À l'époque des copains, chez Bianco l'Argentin, vers 3 heures du matin, quand elle buvait son demi-doubli. Et seule maintenant elle pense au vivant de ce vieux piano mort. Elle voit, elle entend les messes de Saint-Vincent tomber d'un accord. Au bar, quand elle boit, c'est vrai qu'elle revoit des mains sur l'ivoire blanc. Les mains de Bianco, des mains qui lui font cadeau d'un peu du vieux temps. Mais dans son jean, un fantôme en blue jean, un deuxième et puis 20 qui discutent en copains, d'un bistrot démodé, d'un piano démodé. Elle a crié, moi je sais.
I don't know, this is like a lot of the things that I do in that it's sort of that French-Asian mix. It's got a lot of Asian ingredients, but the base of the dish is French. Oh, I love other people to cook for me. I mean, that is my favorite thing. I love to go out to dinner. I mean, I eat that stuff up. I love it when, like, women cook for me. I love that. But, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, no, this is a really great job for me here because it's a very, very friendly restaurant. It's very open. It's easy to be out. There are a lot of gay people here. A lot of, for all better purposes, it's gay run. I've always actually I've always had that like pull to like do the sort of, public service thing. I don't know. I'm a lesbian. I'm supposed to do things like that. And I was actually trying to do that right before I got this job. But my skills are here, so I don't know. Yeah, I guess if I were looking to make somebody, I would, I don't know, I'd invite them into the restaurant, I guess.
I pursued a lot of the symptoms of my chronic fatigue without directly pursuing chronic fatigue for a long time because I didn't think that I had something that was so big.
Sometimes, like when I'll be doing tasks like folding my laundry or cleaning my house, and all of a sudden just everything will get heavier and heavier and heavier to the point where I can't fold like another shirt. I have to lie down, and I'll keep trying to go back to whatever it was I was doing. But just the act of standing or sitting up will be my body will be pulling down.
I would go to my school clinic when I was in university and with various symptoms, and they would always tell me that yes, I had a virus, no, they didn't know what virus I had, and they would send me off, and I'd get very frustrated.
For gay people, lesbians and gay men, who already, and particularly for those of us like myself who came out before the feminist movement, who lived decades as freaks, that this was a way of being a freak again. And it brought up for me all that marginality, and why couldn't I even have an illness that, wasn't freakish, that had clear perimeters, boundaries. But for me, there hasn't been treatment, and this illness is cyclical, and it affects everyone. It's very idiosyncratic for everyone differently.
I think for the most part they have been women. I'd say about 80% women in my practice, and also on a Centers for Disease Control Surveillance Committee that I'm involved with.
It's, they're used to male-based illnesses. They start with a nice male control group, maybe one woman. And what are you going to do when almost every person who gets this is a woman? They're going to say that you're hysterical, that you're depressed, that you're anything but physically ill.
My stories with doctors range from the sort of total trivialization to it's all your fault. I mean, to all the responses a woman, a middle-aged woman, now a menopausal woman gets. A friend said that she had found out about this real hotshot young progressive doctor, holistic doctor on the East Side, and I should try to see him. But she didn't tell me that she hadn't told him that she was a lesbian. We got to his office one evening, and he got up and he came over and he took my head in his hands and he kissed me full on the lips and he said, "This is what you need."
I don't feel very trustworthy of the medical community at all.
Good evening, and welcome to Readings from the Lesbian History Archives. Tonight's installment takes a close look at emerging friendships between women at the turn of the century and the many doctors who treated them. The women's movement has involved an increase in feminine criminality and in feminine insanity. In connection with these, we can scarcely be surprised to find an increase in sexual inversion in women. Dr. Mary Allen, the National Superintendent of the Purity Department of the Women's Christian Temperance Union, and the author of The Man Wonderful and the House Beautiful, included chapters on solitary vice and friendship between girls in her new book. When girls are so sentimentally fond of each other that they are like silly lovers when together and weep over each other's absence in uncontrollable agony, the conditions are serious enough for the consultation of a physician. My dear Miss Lilly, I love you with all the powers and faculties of my nature. I am happy only when I think of you and fancy that I have you in my arms, hugging you to my bosom. You are the inspiration of my thought, the only stimulus of my amorous feelings. How happy the hours in the past when, unsuspected, I could yield myself in your embraces to the full sway of passion's convulsive joys. I know that my absorbing passion for you is strange and often troubles me, and I know not what the world would say could the half be known. But the laws and customs of human society are one thing. My love for you in its peculiar form is my nature, which God gave me, and how can I help it? I do not want to help it. Think of me as your sweetheart. Her passion for women showed itself in tears, fits of jealousy, and lengthy love letters. I next tried exportation, the cutting of the clitoris. But relief from this lasted only 6 weeks. When her ovaries were found to be enlarged, they were operated on and removed. Her nervous excitement continued. Problems with the clitoris returned, and after another consultation was held, it was thought best to cut it away. I could never love a man because he is a man. My tendency is to worship the good I find in friends. I feel the same towards those of my own sex. If they show any regard for me, the touch of a hand has power to take away all morbid feeling. Any woman that had any kind of attraction towards another woman, that had any sort of close feelings of intimacy, was diagnosed as being a sexual invert. It was mutilation.
Hello, I'm Pamela Sneed. Welcome to the Arts. Elizabeth Streb is an amazing choreographer whose athletic choreography will take your breath away. We interviewed Elizabeth recently at the Anchorage in Brooklyn.
My first image of choreography was a fly trapped in a bottle and what that fly could do in that bottle and how interesting it was. But the problem with that, there was no frame of reference, so it always just looked like buzzing around. But this wall gives us, our movement, a frame of reference. So it actually, I think, affects the information that the viewers have about where they are in space and time, even though they're not moving. Because of the nature of the setup, they feel like they are moving. Since I work abstractly, I don't really deal with the subject of lesbianism or gender choice. But I think that I'm definitely influenced by how I view the world, and mostly I ignore gender in my work, if you've noticed, because I think that it just diminishes mostly the female in the real world. When I was younger, I didn't want to be a dancer, I wanted to be a movement artist. So when I went into the field, which was in college, I majored in dance right off. I didn't know what I was getting into. You know, I'd never done a plie, I was an athlete. And I used high velocity in the sports that I did a lot. So my kinesthetic experience was intense, just by virtue of the pieces of equipment I used, like downhill skiing or motorcycle racing. I think that in terms of my aesthetic, I push certain boundaries that aren't pleasant for certain areas of the dance world, like how I use gravity, like the absence of music, how I don't camouflage anything. I think that the questions that I ask about traditional dance and answer, you know, in an ongoing way, I think my answers end up being considered graceless, sometimes and ugly and harsh. I worked with a sound designer who's implanted microphones in all of the different structures that we use. They've designed the sound for this space so that when we make a move, you hear that sound. We don't use music. To me, that's cutting off half the information of the movement. And I go to dance concerts now and the music comes on and I feel like someone's holding their hands over my eyes or ears or something's wrong. It just doesn't make sense to me anymore. So he's tuning up, tuning up the walls. So I found modern dance pretty much uninteresting, but I went ahead and trained my body because I thought it was important to have the muscles on the right spot in your skeleton and do all that, and also to choose not to point your foot or to choose not to do a rond de jambe. I wanted to really know how to do it. The whole idea about like your face, no matter what you do, should remain placid. That's a whole dancerly training. You should carry yourself in a way that's trained. I don't do any of that because I think part of the information is what happens to your face when you do a move that's difficult or not difficult. Because I mic the sounds of the human body, it's so interesting because I've realized mostly when people hear those sounds, which are very poignant sounds, it can only be a human body hitting. It can't be anything else. And mostly when they hear those sounds, somebody's getting hurt. When in fact we've developed a technique, probably similar to football players, but they don't have really as good alignment as we have. So our margin of error is even wider in terms of not getting injured. And I think it sounds like, it looks like, but it's all in all shedding differences about what it really, the animal actually is, which is simply intense physicality. And no one's getting hurt. Well, once in a while you get bruised, but that's all.
Hi, Lower East Side, Dyke in your face. Well, until this recent media blitz, these words were simply enough to stereotype us. But now even I have trouble keeping up. Henceforth, the media lesbian flashcards. Damn lesbians, a coined phrase by our friend Jesse Helms. He phrased this moment during the Roberta Eckenberg nomination. When later asked to explain what he meant by damn lesbian, he said, she's not a garden variety lesbian, she's a political activist mean lesbian. Jesse, what kind of grammar is that? Anyway, henceforth, we will be known as Pam. Not to be confused with Damn, who are our mercenary sisters who go from party to party and club to club, supplying our frisky sisters with their safe sex needs and latex apparel. Garden variety lesbians, also known as green thumb lesbians, are not very political, but they're very good around the garden, and they do mostly drive little dyke pickups, LDPs. Mean lesbians, let's see, an example of a mean lesbian, Eileen Warnos, Hothead Paisan, or for you out there that aren't used to us lesbians, maybe you can think of Basic Instinct Lesbians, a movie I still haven't seen, but that made me think of Fried Green Tomato Lesbians, who lead a Hallmark card existence but don't have any actual lesbian sex. Which brings us to our newest and latest trend-setting type of lesbian, the faux lesbian. Mostly found in film, TV, and the music business, these are women who have very over and tired careers that will try anything to get a little gossip printed about them and get a little new life in their once famous and exciting life. That's me for Dyke TV. Till next time, Lower East Side. Take good care.
Years ago, the only way we would know who we were was if we had our hair cut a certain way, if we dressed a certain way, because it was necessary then. Now, anything goes.
There's really no style because Dyke said, I believe in being yourself. So there is really no style.
You can have it all.
Right. I'm every woman.
It seems like people come out and they think, well, I'm lesbian, I should probably look like Katie Lang now, you know? And I just think that that's bullshit.
Well, there's some women that consider it Dyke style, but for the most part, you can wear whatever you want. There's people here, dresses and shorts and combat boots. Pretty much runs the gamut.
No.
Leather.
Shoes. I have like 10,000.
Shoes, yes.
Shoes. Shoes are the best. I mean,
Shoes are shoes.
Boots are like the Dyke thing.
Doc Martens.
Yeah, no. Motorcycle.
Doc Martens
and your motorcycle
are the best. Doc Martens.
Gotta have a motorcycle.
3 pairs, need more, you know.
My crotchless underwear.
Oh, a leather jacket must be mandatory.
I'd say big black clunky shoes, blue jeans, and white t-shirts. So universal thing.
This I love. This could be 7 days a week. I got hats in every color.
It's individually Dykey. In a year or two, you'll find it at the Gap for money you can't afford to buy it for. Like this. You'll see this at the Gap for $40, $60 a pair. And you saw it here first on Dyke TV.
This was when I was about 1 year old. My mom's dressing me up. She always put a little powder on me. I just have such a huge head. I don't know why I have such a huge head, but there you go. This was a few years later. I was probably about 7 or 8, and our whole clique had just started taking ballet lessons, so we were showing off our newfound ballet steps, and I'm right there in the middle. Over on the right is my cousin, Alcy, who actually turned out to be a Dyke too. All these pictures that you're seeing were taken in the Philippines. I lived there till I was 11. We went to this seminary where there was this famous pink water buffalo, or carabao as Filipinos call them. We went over there for this carabao, and it was very pink. I guess it was an albino. This was obviously a posed picture. My dad told me to hold this little angel and pretend like I was putting it on the tree. That Christmas tree is actually made of plastic because, you know, the Philippines is the tropics and pine trees don't grow there. It looks pretty real, don't you think? The curtain behind us behind me is like all nylon too and plastic. It's pretty much a very plastic picture, you could say. This is around first grade when I had my first communion. I went to this all-girls Catholic school called St. Scholastica's College. I remember that whole time I was just so nervous that I was gonna fuck up somehow and forget my lines or something. Okay, this is, I guess, about 12 or 13 years later. I don't know what else to say. This is like after I've come out already and I'm living my first lesbian relationship, and I guess I look pretty happy here.
This is in the Herman Miller Park in Breckenridge, Texas, my hometown, and and I'm showing my underwear. I'm totally happy. It was a good day, I guess. This is when I was 5, and this is my dress that my mother made for me to be the train bearer for the Buckaroo Queen, the coronation of the Buckaroo Queen, which was our high school thing, the Breckenridge Buckaroos. And this is a funny picture, but look at my hair. They make this dress, she hand sews all these pearls on there, and then she cuts my bangs crooked and leaves them that way. But it was a stellar moment of my childhood when I got to carry the train for Regina, the Queen. This is about the same time. I'm still like 4 or 5 years old. This is my grandfather's backyard, and this outfit, I loved this outfit so much. I wore it like as long as I could. Luckily, I didn't grow very fast, so I was able to wear it for quite a while. And I kept it for a long time. I would still wear it if I had it. This is in Oklahoma a few years later. I'm about 6, and it's like my first real drag experience. And I'm the one with the pipe, and the other one is my brother, Donnie, who's also gay. And he must have been, if I'm 6, then he's like 12. So here we are at the 4-H food contest. It's about 1968. I was in, I think, the 5th grade. And I had this thing going with the garden theme and with the plate and my dress. And the arrangement is with celery and radishes cut to look like roses. Very beautiful. And then I have a cheeseburger down there with a face on it. And I won. That's me in the middle with the glasses on, and we are the cheerleaders for the East Ward Yellow Jackets. It was the the grade school football team. I don't remember what we did except we had these outfits, and I guess they had some games, but it was a very small town. I don't know where they played or anything. This is me with my first girlfriend, Laura. I was in college. This is early on. We were really, really happy, and things changed. But for then it was really good right then.
Hi, this is Lexa with your Inner City Goddesses. Do you know about Hexa, who protects you? You know when you're walking down the street and that maniac is coming after you. Hexa, Hexa, she protects you. Just visualize a hexagram. That's a 5-pointed star, baby, completely surrounding your body.
I'd seen her around for months. I think the first time I saw her was at the march last year. And then I saw her again at the bar. I guess I should have gone up to her then and talked to her, but you know how lesbians get sometimes. Besides, bars aren't really a good place to meet anybody. But our eyes met. So anyway, I was watching TV the other night, and there she was on Dyke TV of all places. Well, I guess you know what I'll be watching.
Mira que sinvergüenza,